Welcome back to the Matrix. You're not just the Matrix, you are the Matrix. How's it feel, Neo? And today we got ourselves a banger. Daily market news analysis. What is up? What is up? How's everyone feeling out of 10? Let me know down in the comments down below. Make sure you guys spam that like button, hitting the share so other people can spam that like button. Let's get into it. As of the time of recording, Bitcoin currently sitting at $92,300. We've had a little bit of a pullback today after having a huge day yesterday in crypto for Ethereum and for Bitcoin. We got as high as 94,200, pulled back all the way to 91,000. But, you know, I think we're probably just working on our higher low here. We've had two higher lows and we've had two higher highs at this point. We could technically come all the way back down to 85,000. I don't necessarily think that we're going to, but we technically could go all the way back down to 85,000 and it'd still be, you know, a higher low. The last one was 4% higher. So if you were to just do that, just kind of see where we're at, that's probably about $87,000. So we're probably working on this back test of another higher low again. But the crazy thing that quietly is happening, someone pointed this out on TikTok, all-time high. Now, not a clean, like, breakout all-time high for the Russell 2000. This is definitely stronger, though. This is a much stronger candle we can see here than we put out over here. This is technically the same level, and realistically, you want to break it cleanly, not just, you know, touch it. But mamma mia, if this goes into price discovery, my oh my, they will write songs of this bear trap. Now, this isn't going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen, you know, it's not like this breaks out and then everything goes absolutely bonkers. It doesn't work that way. But this is an early sign of something is at play here. And we're going to find out what exactly is at play. This is a massive deal. I did not expect it to, because we were 2% yesterday. So a 2% climb today. We got as high as 1.2% yesterday. So big day for the Russell. This could, you know, we could be a bit overheated at this point, getting there. Nothing too crazy. Still pretty neutral, actually, even on the 5 hour. 69 on the 5 hour on the RSI, 3 hour 73. Pretty neutral, honestly. Like, it's a little hot, but it's nothing super crazy. Like, you know, you start getting worried when it's in the 90s, like over here. Like, this is a, you know, end of a rally, so to speak. But that's not what we've gotten. So it's pretty neutral. A little hot on the shorter time frames, but nothing too crazy, to be honest. Let's check the hourly. Yeah, same for the hourly. So this has a real chance tomorrow to put in a new all-time high. It's right there. That is insane. And what a turn of events that is. Now, crypto is going to be lagging from this, and we'll talk about, like, how does this actually play out from the last time. And I would like to, you know, point out, we'll talk about this in just a second. So here's the last time that this is basically the last C19. This is the C19 crash. You fight into all-time highs. It was kind of the same thing where you get into an all-time high here. You get rejected, kind of fight a little bit before breaking out firmly. And then once you broke out firmly, it wasn't this. So this, when we put in a new all-time high for the Russell, 178, that, like a firm new all-time high for the Russell, that was November of 2020, right? So that's still, there was still some time to go. So let's overlay this. Let's actually dive into this. Let's not just, you know, theorize about it. Let's dive into how did this play out here. For Bitcoin specifically, and also for the altcoins. So let's make sure we're on the same time frame. We are. Let's get rid of some of this Fibonacci's here. Let's clean this chart up so that we can actually dive into this here. All right. So obviously we had the C19 crash right here. That was right here. And then, so this is the C19 crash, the C19 crash for Bitcoin. Then in November, that's when we put in an all-time high. And that was also the time when Bitcoin was kind of fighting to get into an all-time high, okay? And then it was after, it wasn't really until the Russell had already topped, basically. So this is the buying climax. Bitcoin had already done a big rally at that point as well. We go into the buying climax, and we can see, like, where is this date? Where's the buying climax of this? So that's after the big first... Bitcoin had already went all the way to 58,000 at the buying climax, and then you pull back all the way to 43,000, and then Bitcoin had basically already topped it by the time that the buying climax was in for the Russell. But it was everything else, when people are like, win alt season. Well, the last time it was when the Russell had broke out into price discovery, which we haven't done yet, but we're showing signs that, like, hey, it's very, very close to breaking out, not into price discovery, but making a new all-time high. That's the first step, is making a new all-time high. And then you go into distribution, and that's when everything went crazy, right? So that's when risk on assets to the highest degree, and it wasn't a long period of time. But mamma mia, my oh my, that would be a crazy. And then we could just show Ethereum real quick too, as sort of like, we'll call it let's do others. Others, I think, would be a really good indication. So others is everything outside of the top 10. That's really what people are referring to when they say alt season, right? So a couple of things need to be true at the same time for you to get the perfect, sugar spice, everything nice. You need Bitcoin to be continuing to make higher highs. You need Bitcoin dominance to continue to roll over. We need Ethereum to continue to put in higher highs, higher lows. And then the Russell needs to go into price discovery. Those are kind of all of the sugar spice, everything nice. We're seeing silver ripping. So it's not like it's tomorrow. I'm not telling you guys it's tomorrow. That's not what I'm saying. But we're seeing, like, there's something at play here. Now we'll see. Are we going to get rejected for the Russell? Is it a big bull trap? We'll see, right? That's possible. That's on the board. I'm not going to say, oh, this is what we're doing. But I don't think anyone is calling for this right now. Okay, so C19 crash was right here. Then you break out. The Russell puts in a new all-time high. Let's circle this clearly so everyone can see, when is this date. It's right here. So this is when, that's basically November of 2020. And then let's put that on, let's get rid of this, and then we'll put it on others, which is everything outside of the top 10, to show you kind of like how the order of operations, because this hasn't happened yet. We've had a lot of crazy things happen, but what hasn't happened yet is the Russell went into price discovery. That has not happened. Okay. And I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. I don't want to give anyone hopium or anything like that. But what I am saying is it's kissing an all-time high right now. Very quietly. Okay, so here's November of 2020. So this is the same date. So we can see how this interacted, right? Let's actually make this a bit bigger. Let's make this bigger, so we can see kind of the whole run here, and we'll make it the same sort of proportions here for others. That's pretty good. Okay, let's do it like so. We'll do one more. That's pretty good. Pretty close. Okay. Yep. Okay, so this is the same date. This is when the Russell gets into an all-time high. We can see, like, very, very low, pretty much dead, right, for others. Near bear market lows, pretty much done nothing. The buying climax, which we're talking about, Wyckoff accumulation, that's technically the top, even though you go higher. The buying climax was right here. So that's the BC. Okay, we'll just circle it right here. This was February/March, March 1st of 2021. And then we'll put that on the screen here so we can see that. Boom. A nice rally. Nothing crazy though. But from the buying climax to this is in Wyckoff what they call the UTAD, which is a reverse spring. Right here, this big peak right here that went slightly higher, and we'll zoom out and show everyone. That was when, from February / early March through November. Like we can see if I scroll together, March through November. This is distribution of the Russell after it went into price discovery. Price discoveries first. We can see nothing happened to others. Nothing happened to others until the Russell went into price discovery. And we'll just show it with Ethereum too. But that's others, which is like everything outside the top 10. We'll just show Ethereum too. Just so everyone has a good reference of like, hey, if this is a crazy bear trap or if this is a crazy bear trap, what are we looking for? Okay, so here's the date. Let's make it the same. Right there. Boom. Make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so that's when the Russell put in a new all-time high. Same thing for Ethereum. Ethereum's pretty much dead here. Barely doing anything. This is the C19 I have circled here. But let's go to the buying climax, which was right here. Okay, Ethereum had a nice rally, but not the whole thing, right? Ethereum had a nice run for sure, but not the whole thing. So we'll measure that. That's a 2.5x. Definitely a good run, but it was only at 1,700 and it finished at 4,800. From the buying climax until the UTAD, that was your alt season, okay? The Russell has not broken into price discovery. That hasn't happened yet. That has not happened. So I'm going to go all the way out. We'll show you the three. So this was 2021. This was alt season right here. We'll put a big box around it so everyone can see it. Everyone keeps asking about alt season. This was alt season right here. That's when it took place. Now before, that was it. So that is price discovery, breaking into a new level, and then going into distribution. During the distribution, that's when things went crazy. Now, what has not happened yet is the Russell has not broken into a new all-time high. It's flirted with it. This is the second time it's flirting with it. Third time it's flirting with it. Has not broken yet. Same thing happened over here, by the way. Right? You try to break out crazy, big rejection, and then boom, you go off and away. Okay? So we haven't gotten into price discovery. That is stipulation number one, for sure. Now, I don't want to give anyone false hope, right? Because we could easily get rejected. Easily get rejected again. But what I'm saying is, if by the grace of God, we break out into a new all-time high, and I'm going to argue against myself too. Mamma mia. Now, let's talk about a person that I have a lot of respect for. All right, and that is the blockchain backer. And I'm going to argue their point against what I'm saying right now so that you can have it both ways and you can make your own decision. I'm not trying to make decisions for you, okay? It's not what I'm doing, not what I'm here to do. Now, I'm going to give you his point, and then I'm also going to give you a point against that I think that has a hole as well. And then you can make your own decision. The blockchain backer is pulling his Fibonacci from 2007 on the Russell down to the 2008 financial crisis. Okay, and if you zoom it out all the way, what you can see is we're pretty much perfectly at the 4236 extension. I would agree that is a top, right? That's as high as you typically go in Fibonacci's. That is true. Like if Bitcoin goes to the 4236, I am definitely going to be a bear for sure. If Ethereum goes to the 4236, I'm going to be a bear. In fact, I'll show you where Bitcoin did that very same thing last cycle from 2017 to 2021. Okay? Now, my only issue with this, so this is his argument saying like he doesn't think that the Russell is going to go higher because that's a thing that he's been talking about, right? So I'm just arguing, I'm just giving you all sides here. Now, the only hole in this argument that I would say, and it's a pretty big one, is he was saying the same thing about the Dow Jones. Okay? He pulled the same Fibonacci from 2007 to, and again, I have, for the blockchain backer, honestly, like as far as other TA people, there's not another person that I have more respect for. Okay, that's God's honest truth. I think he's one of the best. All right, I have a lot of respect. But I'm just trying to present the facts plainly, and you can make your own decision here. He had the same Fibonacci from 2007 on the Dow Jones to 2008 financial crisis. And then you have the same thing here. This is what he was saying back in December. And we kissed the 4236 perfectly, right? Almost perfectly. And then, you know, he was saying that this is good night, Charlene, and we were going to go off to Valhalla, or off to Hades, basically. The only issue is, like, we did pull back from the 4236, and then we just have been ripping. And I think a huge issue that this line of thinking, especially when you're talking about from 2007 until 2025, we're talking, you know, almost 20 years. The devaluation of the dollar, like $1 does not equal $1. Literally. And the devaluation of the dollar, and also, this is when quantitative easing started. Quantitative easing was not a thing. It was not a thing. All right? So listen, I'm not trying to tell you what to think, what to believe, any of that stuff. I'm just trying to present all arguments. I'm giving you the for and against for what I'm saying. But quantitative easing was not a thing until... Where in the world is my marker? Here we go. This is when quantitative easing started. It was never a thing before this. It was never a thing before this. That was not a thing. For 100 years, quantitative easing has not been a thing. That's when quantitative easing started. Okay, so money is fundamentally not the same thing. And I agree, 4236 extension, that's maximum parabolic. I don't even make my investment thesis around the 4236 extension. I make it around the 3.618. But he was saying the same thing about the Dow Jones back in 2021, that we hit it. And it's true, we did. But then we just ripped past it. And I suspect, if you're making a bull argument, if you're making the bear argument, here's the bear argument. We're at the 4236, we're going to roll over. Okay, like, I'll buy that for $1. If you're making the bull argument, though, you would say the 4236 is not the 4236 because the dollar is not the dollar. And fundamentally, that is a fact. Whether it plays out in the Russell or not, time will tell. We're literally at the apex of, there's only two things that can happen here. That's it. We're either going to break out and go into price discovery, or we're going to get rejected. I would argue that we already had our breakout rejection, just like the Dow Jones did over here. Literally the same time. December of 2021, rejection off the 4236, come back a little bit. December of 2021, rejection off the 4236, come back a little bit, reaccumulate, and then off to the next leg higher. So, and you know, it's already at the 2618. So, I mean, it's probably going to march its way to the 3618, to the 4236. We'll see. But this is, you know, that's way beyond the 4236 at this point. And so we'll see. Like, is the Russell going to follow? We'll see. Time will tell. Time will tell. But if it does, my oh me, my oh my, that is the stipulation for risk on assets. That is the stipulation for risk on assets. So this is what I'm going to be locked and loaded on. The most important thing, in my opinion, the most important thing in this entire market is what is the Dow Jones going to do? And we are literally at the apex of the decision. It doesn't get it, like, we are here. We are going to get our decision very, very soon. You are not going to have to wait. Why is VeChain down? Like, how many days? Not very many days. Evening, Devin. What is up? What's up, Ski? Show it with the Bitcoin chart. I already did, but I'll do it again. So the first thing that I did, all right, let's do this again. We'll do it one more time because it's the most, like I'm telling you, it is the most important chart. So we'll do it again. We'll do it with Bitcoin. We'll do it with Ethereum. And then we'll do it with, we can do it with the total 3. And then we'll do it with others. So that's pretty much every layer of altcoins, right? All right. So let's do it. All right. Now, let's go back. This is 2007. All right. Let's get rid of this. Okay. So right here is the C19 crash. And then let's do Bitcoin first. Obviously, Bitcoin is the first mover of cryptocurrency. You got to understand that. And what is different about Bitcoin versus everything else? Bitcoin has already went into price discovery. Almost nothing else has. Right? So that's the context we need to understand when we're looking at Bitcoin. Right now, presently, versus in 2021, when we start looking at Ethereum and the altcoins. Right? Bitcoin has already went into price discovery. Bitcoin is always the first mover as far as altcoins. So those are truths. Like, you're going to have outliers, sure. There's a million coins, but generally that is how it's going to play out. Right? No one's disputing that. Okay. So here's the C19 crash. Let's try to line this up perfectly. So you can see the big dip here. The big dip here. That's the C19 crash. This is on the top is the Russell. On the bottom is Bitcoin. Okay. Now, so I have this circled, and we'll put this on the same day here so we can see. Let's scrunch this together. Trying to make it the perfect time here. Bust out my AP. All right. So this is the moment the Russell, I have it circled right here, November of 2020. November of 2020 is when the Russell finally put in a new all-time high, right? We can see during that same time, Bitcoin was pretty much right there as well. It didn't quite have an all-time high, but it was pretty close, right? Then, as the Russell was breaking out, Bitcoin was breaking out too. Okay. By the time the Russell goes into the buying climax, Bitcoin had pretty much done most of it. It had already went to $58,000. Again, Bitcoin is the first mover. We know that to be true. And then through the distribution was that was it for Bitcoin. Okay. I don't actually think it tells us a lot of information for Bitcoin. But it does for Ethereum and all the rest of the altcoins. Because what is the Russell signaling? The Russell signals risk on assets. Okay, so we have the same thing here. I have this date circled, which is when the Russell breaks into a new all-time high. Right? Right here, right here. Ethereum was dead. Nothing. Okay? Then by the time the Russell gets into price discovery, Ethereum was still not at an all-time high. Or barely. You could say it barely poked to another all-time high, right? That's just barely getting above the previous all-time high we can see here. From the buying climax to the upthrust, if I zoom out and show you, like that was it. This is distribution, and then you go down into accumulation. From the buying climax to the upthrust, if you see this scroll on top, you can see it scrolling on the bottom. And what do you notice? Here's the buying climax. Here is the upthrust. I don't know if you saw this. That's literally the entire run for Ethereum. All right, I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see it. This is the buying climax, and I'm talking about Wyckoff distribution. So you go into your big markup, you go into your rounded top, you could call it, buying climax, UTAD. From the buying climax to the UTAD, your rounded top, guess what? That is Ethereum's entire run. All right. The same is true for others. And listen, what I'm not saying is the Russell is going to go into price discovery tomorrow and then go into distribution. I'm not saying that. I don't want to give you guys false hope. What I'm saying is we're at the all-time high right now, and there's only two options. Either you break out or you get rejected. That's it. That's it. Those are your options. Okay? When you're at all-time highs, your only options are you're breaking out or you're getting rejected. That is it. All right, let's show others, which is everything outside the top 10. And it is the same thing. So we have circled. Same date here. November of 2020. This is when Bitcoin, the Russell gets into a new all-time high. It is circled on the bottom. Oops. Okay. It breaks this all-time high. Goes into price discovery. Good little run out of others. For sure, that's a good run. But again, what do we notice? Barely an all-time high. And what do we notice? Let's do it again. Like, I'm going to show you others, which is all the altcoins outside of the top 10. From the buying climax, which I have circled. Let's line it up perfectly here. Okay. From the buying climax, it's circled on the bottom. You can see I'm toggled right over top of it. To the upthrust. The entire distribution of the Russell, that was the entire run. That was it. Now let's show, we'll do the total 3. Whoops. Daggone it. My God. Let's do this for the total 3. So that's, we hit Bitcoin, we hit Ethereum, we hit the total 3, and now we're hitting, and then we also hit others. Okay, so same thing. We're going to have this circle. We're going to put the circle right over November of 2020. Right in here. There we go. And then we're going to circle the buying climax, which was right here. All right. This is the total 3, which is everything outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Okay, we can see we have the moment the Russell gets into an all-time high, which it's flirting with right now, not cleanly a breakout. It's flirting with. And again, I am not telling you the Russell is going to break out and go into price discovery and go into distribution. I don't want to give anyone false hope. What I'm telling you is the Russell is at an all-time high right now. There are two options. And I'll paint the bull case and I'll paint the bear case. Now, we'll talk about that in just a second. All right, so here's the date. Circled. Dead. Nothing. Total 3. Bear market lows. Dead. Nothing. Then we go into price discovery. Buying climax. What do you notice about the total 3? Not quite at an all-time high. A nice rally, but not quite an all-time high. From the buying climax to the upthrust, let's zoom out and show it. Here is the total 3. From the buying climax to the upthrust, that is the entire run. That was the whole run right there. Now, let's talk about I'm going to give you the bear case of like, here's the argument against the Russell breaking out, and then I'll give you the argument for it. And then you can make your own decisions. But that is what happens when the Russell goes into price discovery. Now, the argument against this is from a person who I have a lot of respect for. Out of all the analysts, the blockchain backer is the one that I respect probably the most. Out of everybody, the blockchain backer I have more respect for than probably anybody. Like, he is really about his business, and I have a lot of respect for what he says. Okay? I have a lot of respect. All right. His argument is that we're at the 4236. This is where you get rejected. This is maximum parabolic. I agree with that. That is true on Fibonacci's. If Bitcoin was at the 4236 right now, I would be telling you guys to sell. If Ethereum was at the 4236 right now, I'd be telling you to sell. That is true. Maximum parabolic 4236. Okay, so that's the bear case. You could totally make that argument. Hey, this is maximum parabolic. We're going to get rejected here, and we're going to go lower. I'll buy that for $1. Okay. Now, the only argument against this is from 2007 all the way till 2009. That's when the Fibonacci was pulled. This is when quantitative easing began. Through the history of the last 100 years, there was no quantitative easing before this moment. So what does that mean? Here's the argument against this right here. There was the dollar. The Fibonacci is not the Fibonacci because the dollar is not the dollar. Does that make sense? Quantitative easing started here. That fundamentally changed our dollar. And I want to preface, out of every analyst in this game, I probably have more respect for the blockchain backer than probably anybody. Okay, for real. So I have nothing but respect for the blockchain backer. But I want to point out, he had the same argument about the Dow Jones, which also was true from 2007 till 2009, Fibonacci 4236 extension. We went all the way to it, kissed it, got rejected, and then that was it. Like, we have went exponentially higher because the dollar is not the dollar. So what happened? We went to it in December of 2021, got rejected momentarily, before then going off to Valhalla. You could easily make the argument that that's the exact same thing that happened. 4236 in 2021, rejection, slight accumulation, and it is flirting with doing the exact same thing that the Dow Jones has literally already done. So listen, I'm not here to tell you what's going to happen. I'm here to tell you that's what happens if the Dow Jones breaks out. This is why it could break out. This is why it could get rejected. Personally, I think that the the Russell has a strong chance of breaking out. This is my personal opinion now. I just gave you all the facts, all the data. What happens when that happens? Now, my personal opinion is the dollar is not the dollar from 2007. It's not the same thing. That's almost 20 years. They have printed the dollar to oblivion and quantitative easing started in 2009. It's not the dollar. So the Fibonacci is not an accurate reading of inflation. That is my personal opinion, that the Russell will break out. But you have an argument for why it won't. And I'm telling you what will happen if it does break out. So there you go. ETH to 10K. Back test to 86K in motion. That's certainly on the table. We talked about that at the beginning of the live stream. That's just a higher low. I buy that for $1 for sure. I definitely buy that for $1. He said 86. It's a in motion to 86K. Sure. What I just talked about was super macro. That's not tomorrow. Now you want to get micro? Sure. Listen, we've had 2 higher lows. We've had 2 higher highs. We could easily come in and put another higher low as low as 85K, and it's still another higher low. So yeah, for sure in the micro, I buy that for $1. I buy that for $1. Yes. How do you feel about XRP? How do you feel about Watson XRP take? I don't know what Watson's XRP take is. I have no idea. If 85K doesn't hold, then what? It would probably mean that the Russell got rejected. You've been buying a lot of things for a weaker dollar? What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Are we going to see a parabolic bull run? If the Russell breaks into price discovery, yes, we are. And this was one of the craziest bear traps in history. I have it outlined for Bitcoin. Base case, bull case. This is my bull case. This is one of the craziest bull traps or bear traps in history. This would mean that the Russell is going into price discovery. If the Russell goes into price discovery, I think it's one of the craziest bear traps in history. If it gets rejected, it probably looks like this. Rejection as low as, we'll probably rally to 100K still, but we'll probably end up at 74 or 73K. What about a bull trap? A bull trap would be to 110. Yeah, that's on the card, sure. Rallying to 110 and then rejection back down. This would basically be my base case. This is a bull trap right here. This is a bull trap. Yes, this would be like we rally to 110, 107, and then all the way back down to 77. That is a bull trap. Yes. That's basically what I think. It's either a bear trap or a bull trap. But I think the key is the Russell. What is the Russell going to do here? Excuse me, the Russell. Like, look at how close this is to an all-time high. Like, this is all-time, or at the all-time high. That's it. There's only 2 things that can happen here. That's it. When you're at an all-time high, there's 2 scenarios. That is it. That is it. Sentiment doesn't lean towards a bull trap. I would agree. I think that people are very pessimistic. Yes. In order to get a bull trap, it needs to be like kind of FOMO time. But people are going to switch to FOMO if things start breaking out and going higher. Probably will be disbelief until all-time highs. That's probably how it's going to play out. I think we already had a bull trap a few months back. Yeah, sure. I'll buy that. Okay, this is a good question, and I appreciate you challenging my thoughts. Because I don't think you're being nasty. I think you're being curious. All right, so the question is, and you're correct, why is the bull trap, your base case, if you believe the Russell is going to break into an all-time high. Okay. At this point, I don't want to give anyone false hope. Here's the answer. Let me just answer you, and then I'm going to elaborate. When I came up with my base case, the Russell looked like this. It did not look like it had any hope of making a new all-time high. It looked like a clean rejection. Okay? That was when I came up with my base case. This is a new discovery. This is a new thing that is taking place in the market. Okay? This is only 10 days now that this has been happening? This is a new development, not discovery, new development, okay? So, you are correct. When I made my analysis, I gave a bull case and a base case. I gave higher probability to the base case, which is it's a bull trap, and we're going to go to 77. A new development that is happening, the Russell is going crazy. And to me, this looks stronger than the first time that we were over here. So at this point, you could probably say it's 50-50. Whereas, 2 weeks ago, I would have said like 80-20. But this is right, like we're here. Like there's no more options. It's just a breakout or it's just a rejection. Those are our options. That is it. So to answer your question, when I made my analysis, this is what the Russell looked like. I did not think that there was a good chance at all. And I did put it out there if the Russell broke out, like it would change things. But I didn't give it a high probability, to be honest. But here we are. The market does what it does. The market does what it does. I think we hit mid-60s. That's on the board. On the board. I don't think that that's a crazy take. That's like the low end. $95 plus. They'll probably buy again 120 plus, to be honest with you. Is this bear trap crazier than the C19 in your opinion? I think so, because of the time, the demoralization. I feel like people had more fear because the entire world was shut down, but I think that people are more demoralized this time around because at least you still had the hope of like the 4-year cycle to bail you out. That's not a thing anymore. So probably the violence is not as much, I would say. I'd say like, but that's more because Bitcoin was newer. Let's see. Let's measure it. Let's get you an exact number answer here. I would say sentiment-wise, it's worse than C19, if that ends up being the case. But probably technically, no. No. Technically, no. 60%. 60% correction. So technically, no. However, again, Bitcoin was only 10K here. So, it wasn't really crazy to go from 10K to, 3, 4K. I feel like that's less crazy almost than going from 126K down to 80K. So technically that was more violent. However, I think from a sentiment standpoint, this has been worse. People were more afraid during the C19 because literally they were shutting down the entire world. So there was more fear, but it was less about the market, I think, and more about just life, right? Where this is more just market. Just purely market stuff here. How soon will we know if the Russell will break out? I would say, I don't want to put a time on it, but probably in the next week or so. It could be earlier than that, But give it a couple of weeks, you'll have your answer for sure. You won't be disappointed if you count on 2 weeks. By Christmas. You'll know by Christmas. If you have your expectation by Christmas, we're going to have our answer. You're not going to be disappointed. It could easily happen before then, but you won't be disappointed. Ski, you think the Russell is launching due to the market seeing massive liquidity coming? Absolutely. Like, what is the Russell breaking out a signal of? It's a signal of risk on assets. What is the highest risk on assets? Cryptocurrency. Save us, Ski. But Ski, please help. Help. So listen, guys, like that's what it is. Like, you know, I could just go through the charts and give you all kind of, you know, this, that, and the third, but really I think it's very simple. I really think it's that simple of like the Russell is the truth. If we get rejected, then hey, it's probably a bear trap, which is the base case. You know, we'll probably finish our rally around 100K and roll over to 77K, right? If we break out, though, mamma mia, could be one of the craziest bear traps in history. I like to sell low and buy high. Yeah. Only real ones. 1010 Black Swan Suplex. The one who market expectations of euphoria. Only real ones left now. That's it. You guys are savages. If you're still here, you're a savage, bro. You are a savage. Listen, all you got to do is take note. Like, how many viewers do we have on TikTok? We got 115 viewers. That should tell you something. Because when Bitcoin was at all-time highs, we were chilling at like 400, 500, 600 nightly. I'm not complaining. I'm pumped that y'all are here still. Savages. But that should tell y'all, where are we at? What are people interested in? Verified Savage. Let's go. Solnick Savage. Let's go.
But the cream will rise to the top. Oh, yeah.
That's what it takes. It takes being a savage. It takes discipline. It takes consistency. And it takes navigating the emotions, because it literally is emotional warfare. Like, we just went through hell. Make no mistake about it. 1010 through now has been hell. That's what it takes, though. Do you think Trump meme coins sank alt season? It did something. The one stipulation that is clearly different or has not happened yet from 2021 and 2017 is the Russell, right? So during 2021, the Russell was in price discovery and distribution. We have not went into price discovery. I think it's very possible. My thoughts have been that it delayed us, and it's the reason it's taken so long. I do think that's true. Whether it killed it or delayed it, we will find out. Find out next time on Dragon Ball Ski. We'll see. I think it definitely delayed it. Did it kill it? We'll see. Alt season may not be a thing anymore. If the Russell goes into price discovery, that it will be a thing. It will be a friend, or it will be a thing. If it gets rejected, we'll see. Writing Solnick out here where it goes for the long haul. Solnick hit $8.88 on the monthly. This is a glitch, but it happened. It's foreshadowing of things to come. Never invest more than you can lose, and you won't have so many emotions in this game. 100%. What's price discovery for the Russell? All right, let's see. We're going to know before that we're going to price discovery, but like full on price discovery is 29 or 290. That's full price discovery, right? And that's where we could start to expect going into distribution, right? We would probably know around 2265. Like, hope that's what we're doing. This is no longer a fake out, right? Because what we could do, like, you have to understand how the market works. So you don't want to call it prematurely. Like, tomorrow we could wake up and it's at 254, right? That's great. It's a great start. But like how the market could easily go is like, oh, that was it. You know what I mean? It could go as high as like 260, and that was it. It was a fake out. It was a bull trap, right? Probably about 264 is like confirmation that, hey, that we're breaking to the price discovery. And then by the time we got to the end of it, it would probably be around 290, 295, and look something like the last time was like and that was alt season right there. That was alt season. Right here. This was alt season. And if we pull a fib from here, let's go on the 3-day here. This was also at the 1618. So there you go. That checks out. Right? So I don't, if we break into a new all-time high like 254 or whatever, like we can't call it because it could be a bull trap. But once you start getting above, like, it's great news. I'm going to take it. I'm going to be pumped about it for sure. But it's like 265 ish. It's like, okay, this is what we're doing. You know what I mean? And then we'll probably go to about 290 after prices. That's full price discovery going into distribution. That's your bull case. $256 target high tomorrow. It's very possible. What's the fib level for the Russell? On what time frame? 1618 is the last alt season was the 1618. This was the 1618 from the 2018 high to the C19 low. This is the 1618. Minaj says, "Yo, what is up, bro?" What is up? I think we rally. All right. Just remember who told y'all about the Russell. This was a good lesson. If you missed this, you could go on my YouTube and watch the full replay. But this outlines it really clearly. I'll probably make a video on this. Gives a very clear if then that with what is invalidations and why. Also with, what would cause the invalidations to be wrong. What am I buying? The Russell is a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'll buy that for $1. Can you summarize us for joining late? Yes. All right. I will summarize and then I got to go. And then I would say, like, head over to my YouTube channel and check out the full live stream because I break it down very thoroughly. I'm going to summarize it one more time and then I got to go. All right. All right. The Russell 2000. The one thing that has been different this time around that was true in 2021 and true in 2017. The Russell went into price discovery. That has not happened yet. The Russell has not went into price discovery. Okay? That is the one piece of data, and I would argue the most important piece of data that has been different this time, that has happened in the other two cycles, that has not happened in this cycle. The Russell has not went into price discovery. Today, right now, we are at an all-time high. Right now, the Russell is at an all-time high. There are two outcomes when you're at an all-time high. Only two. That is it. Either you're going to get rejected or you're going to go into price discovery. That's it. So we're here right now, today, right now, the Russell is at an all-time high. Okay? That has not happened. We haven't went into price discovery for the Russell. The other two times we did. So 2017, 2021, the Russell went into price discovery. Okay? And I compared it to Bitcoin. I compared it to Ethereum. I compared it to others. I compared it to the total three. But I will summarize it. So basically, let's get rid of all of this. All right, and I'm just going to summarize, and you can go watch the full video. It's on YouTube. It'll be on YouTube. I'm live right now on YouTube, but it'll be there. All right, from the C19 crash until the Russell goes into price discovery, pretty much most of the altcoins were dead. Bitcoin was basically close to an all-time high at that point. From all-time high in the Russell till buying climax, a little bit of a rally. Bitcoin was already at an all-time high. The altcoins, a little bit of a rally, nothing crazy. From buying climax till upthrust, that was the rally. I'll show it real quick with whatever this is. This is the total three. Great. Perfect example. But it's the same for all of them except for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the first mover. We know that. So here is the point when the Russell breaks into an all-time high. Here's the total three, the same point. We can see it's dead. Nothing. Dead. 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 From all-time high till price discovery, little rally, not quite an all-time high in the total three. Now I want you to watch, because it's the same for all of them. Buying climax of the Russell to the upthrust. Look at how I scroll. Buying climax. I'm going to scroll. It's scrolling at the bottom at the same time. What do you notice? That is the entire rally. That is the entire run. Not the rally. That's the run. Not only is the Russell an important piece, it is the piece. Okay? And then I made my arguments why it could break out, why it couldn't. You can check all that out. But here we are. We're at an all-time high right now. There's two options. That's it. We know what happens when the Russell breaks out. So we'll see. Are we going to break out, go into price discovery, or are we going to get rejected? If we go into, here's what I think for Bitcoin, and then you can fill in the blank for the altcoins. If the Russell breaks into an all-time high, it was one of the craziest bear traps of all time. This is what it's going to look like. If the Russell gets rejected, I think the rally ends about $100,000, and then we come down to about 73K before starting a new rally. Those are the two outcomes. All right, guys. Am I still doing the daily live? Yes, I've been doing them. I'll start doing them on TikTok again, but I've been doing them in the Telegram group. Are you scalping to 100K? Yes, I've been scalping Ethereum. I have been scalping Ethereum pretty well. Right. That is going to be it for this time. I will probably make a video on YouTube later about what I just talked about, but the live stream is, you know, if you want to catch the whole live, it's on YouTube. You can check that out. I thoroughly covered all of that stuff. But that is the summarized version. But that's going to be it for this time. I'll be live about the same time tomorrow. My goal is to be live before 5 p.m. Central Time if I'm running late. And if I'm on time, it'll be 4:30 p.m. Central Time. So that's going to be Monday through Friday. And then I'll continue to upload my videos. I'll probably make a TikTok about it later because I think it's just so important. I don't think enough people are talking about it. But that's going to be it for this time. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow me on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Peace, love, prosperity. God first. God bless.